What's up, everybody? It's your boy Ryan, and this is the Thunder Channel on Nootropics. So I want to talk about how biohacking is not a linear process. We'll talk about that in the context of fixing a major chemistry issue that you're going to use nootropics or research chemicals with, fixing other major mainstream issues like PSSD or ADHD, and really anything like optimizing tests. It's more linear, but sometimes it's not a straight shot of the same compounds for everybody. Generally, how biohacking is not a linear process. I want to break that stuff down. In the meantime, you guys know a supports this broadcast, and that is Cortex Auto Ship. That's our nootropic stack, Cortex. Listen, it's a powerful pre-made stack. I'll expand it so you can see it. Boom, boom. And Auto Ship is finally here. Imagine having a brain pill, like a powerful brain pill, shipped to your doorstep every month. Look, you want consistent function. Go get the Cortex Nootropic Stack Auto Ship, livecortex.com. There's also an option to buy it one time if you've not tried it. For those of you that have PSSD, we just created a scaled down PSSD basic consult. Still effective, obviously not as much time, but way more affordable than the 3K package. For those of you that want to get the 3K but want to get results but don't have the budget, get the PSSD basic. For those of you that are new to nootropics, Nootropics Ground Zero, video course of me laying it all out, how to use them, great stacks, how to induce states on cue, methodologically using nootropics. If you're new, you should also get Smarter, Better, Faster, and the better version, that's the interactive audiobook. Last couple things, cats, can you guys stop? 3.5 month intensive, 6 month intensive. These are one-on-one biohacking consults with me, where we basically optimize every facet of your energy, hormonal profile, and most importantly, brain performance using nootropics and research chemicals. Okay, that's it. So biohacking is not a linear process. Let's just take PSSD, for example. Folks always say, hey, you assume we know what it is. It's when someone takes an SSRI, gets off the SSRI, and their sexual function is muted. They have zero sensitivity or next to it, zero libido or next to it. They have a hard time even focusing to get proper EQ, and it's almost impossible to climax. It's like that whole system is muted. It's terrible. It's one of the worst afflictions one can have, especially a man, right? It's like takes away your manhood and your masculinity. That particular condition, I have had great success treating people that have that condition. Way more success than pharma or anybody else, even doctors people pay 10 grand to go see. And they do brain scans and all this other stuff, and they can't really do much for them. But it's not because I have a cookie cutter strategy on solving the condition or removing symptoms. It's because from the gate, and this is how every biohacker should think about everything they're trying to fix. From the gate, my orientation is we're gonna fucking fix this no matter what, no matter how long it fucking takes. I'll die first. We're gonna fucking fix it. That's the orientation that you have to have as a biohacker. From the beginning, this is gonna be fixed. Even if it's a condition that pharma or the medical establishment has not been able to solve. I've solved plenty of those conditions. It is not that difficult. They have restrictions from what they can do. They're not focused on fixing stuff. I mean, it's like, okay, well, let's target some chemistry, it'll alleviate some symptoms, and here you go. Biohacking is not a linear process. Okay, I may not know, in the case of PSSD, which of the known effective regimens or chemicals will be effective for people. So there's a guy with PSSD that I'm able to remove 90% of symptoms in 6 months. Okay, let's call him Jack. Then there's another guy, identical PSSD type, meaning the same things are going on, same exact regimen, only gets to 50% symptom removal or 50% progress, and he's not budging at that point, right? Same regimen. That's because biohacking is not a linear process. That takes, from feedback from user, me to go back to the drawing board, see exactly why this regimen is failing, peer deeper into what they may be doing over in PSSD. It's like acute periods. What have you done in the last 2 weeks? Have you eaten a lot of starch? Have you fostered more of those 5-HT and dopamine clearance systems to clear the neurotransmitter from the synapse? Because that's a bulk of what you're dealing with besides the receptor function and task signaling for some people. It's not a linear process, right? Well, then how do we attack that? There's also, in the case of PSSD, new chemicals that I'm researching and experimenting with to make the process quicker. so that, you know, it takes less time for people to have symptoms removed. So instead of it being 3.5 months, 6 months, or 9 months, it could be 2 months or a month and a half, right? I mean, that's something in the future, but you only do that through biohacking and trying things, experimenting, getting feedback, constantly thinking, constantly reading up on what you're experimenting with, fully understanding the chemistry, and then just continuing to go. But background, having that position, like, I'm gonna fucking solve this no matter what. This particular person in this case, it's gonna get solved, and you just keep pushing. Let's take a guy who has taken Adderall for 7 years, okay? I've had a couple of those as clients. And the state they're usually left with is anhedonia. Some have sexual dysfunction. Mostly they just completely lose motivation to do anything, and they're walking around with like very, very suboptimal energy. It's a terrible existence to have. Okay, so the strategy for, like, let's call him Mark, that worked was a 3.5 month regimen of 50 milligram doses, 5 days a week of 9-methylbicarboline, 4 days a week of 40 milligrams bromontane, lemon balm at 100 to 200 milligrams to quell the additional anxiety that the person had. That was the sort of part of the condition. Carefully using dopamine transporter optimizing chemicals like luteolin, among others, fixing the releasable reservoirs of dopamine, getting D1, the autoreceptor, in check, and the other autoreceptors on the dopamine receptor side in check, so they're not inhibiting dopamine function, regulating the system. May have worked for Mark, but the same chemicals would get, like, Jefferson, you know, to 60% and not to 100. So there's something else missing in that person's, you know, situation. And what ends up missing runs the gamut completely. It could be that the guy has, like, SERT, which is the serotonin transporter malfunction. That's somewhat common in people that take Adderall, in which case for Jefferson, we needed to put him on TRT because there was something stopping, like, the VTP from helping them elevate test, and then let testosterone regulate SERT, and then that takes them up to 80%. And then there's another thing that we may have to do to take them to 100, right? Biohacking is not a linear process, especially when you're talking about fixing major problems. It's sort of a process of, like, you start off from the gate being like, we're going to solve this. It's going to get solved. You know the usual suspects, and you know the chemistry of chemicals that one may need to administer. The doses are going to, I mean, that you'll have to figure out through experimentation what ends up working best. It's a long period of feedback analysis, re-experimentation, feedback analysis, re-experimentation. But yeah, I mean, you will come to junctures in your biohacking process of a major chemistry problem where you stall, you hit a plateau, you stop making progress. And there are reasons for that. It is your job as a biohacker. So if you're doing this on yourself, it is your job to find out why, right? To introduce new chemicals, to change doses, to keep the baseline the same, but to bring other things in at low doses just to experiment. What else are you missing? What are you missing? Because none of these conditions are templated in that the same thing is wrong every time. Obviously, there are classical things that are across the board wrong, but there's always additional variables in pretty much every situation. Even something simple to resolve, but which does take time, like adrenal hormone insufficiency, B vitamins, licorice root, sometimes actual adrenal cortex glandulars, sometimes hypothalamus, HPA signaling supplements. But in other cases, like it's just different for different people. People might need to take 3-4 grams vitamin C twice a week for aldosterone. That's one of the things you use to synthesize aldosterone and fosters the function of it. Some people's insulin might be so whack that needs to be biohacked in order to fully fix the problem. It's not a linear process. Nothing in biohacking is a linear process. Even the things that are pretty simple to fix. Let's take reflux, for example. Reflux is a condition that I know a lot about because I dealt with it. I dealt with probably the worst kind. I don't even think the burning kind is the worst. The worst is LPR, when it goes all the way up to your throat. You actually don't feel it, but it closes up your throat. It gives you basically sleep apnea. Most sleep apnea is in the gut, for the record, in my opinion. Though that is a linear process in terms of the chemicals you'll be taking, to remove the symptoms and to do it safely, like not like by inhibiting the proton pumps and like having malabsorption of a bunch of vitamins and getting osteoporosis, which is what the mainstream drugs for reflux would do, but by eliminating the archaeobacter in the small intestine or keeping them constantly in check. But so you use some of the same compounds, fennel, ginger, peppermint oil, enteric-coated chemicals that are in enteric-coated capsules, compounds like D-limonene, but used in a different way for different people every time. It's like some people, in order to quell the nighttime reflux, they don't have it all day, but in order to quell the nighttime reflux, after dinner they execute a certain regimen, and then they may need to eat a little bit right at midnight as they're falling asleep, and then take one more supplement. And that actually jumpstarts the process of digestion, makes them secrete a little bit more stomach acid, and then that last chemical just sort of helps smooth things through. Then they sleep for 8 hours straight and have no sleep apnea, no reflux in the middle of the night. The point is, though, that regimen changes, and the dose frequency changes, and the dose time changes, because biohacking is not a linear process. It's never been a linear process, right? So who does this help? I mean, biohackers, but also people looking for solutions to things, and saying well, where's the cure? Is there a cure? That just isn't how physiology... Sorry, I think I had a phone call. That just isn't how physiology works. There isn't a laid out cure. There can be for some things, but there's no way it's going to apply to everybody, right? You can certainly figure out, and I'm on the cusp. I think I'm less than a year of figuring out a patentable PSSD solution. You can figure things like that out, but again, not going to be applicable to everybody. Either way, biohacking is not a linear process. It's a lot of this. It's a lot of zigzagging, right? It's a lot of feedback analysis, re-experimentation, feedback analysis, re-experimentation, thinking, going deep in the studies. There's a process to it. It's a process to it. It's the most challenging thing in the world, but it's the most rewarding thing in the world when you can, on yourself, fix a problem that your doc looks at you with cross eyes and goes I have no idea how to fix that or that it even exists. And obviously it does, because you have the symptoms. People that have dealt with major, large-scale chemistry issues and gone to specialists who they paid multiple tens of thousands of dollars to, and they've done nothing for them. And then I'm able to, in those cases, get people functioning pretty normally in a month. It's rewarding, but it's hard because it isn't a linear process. It's constant work. It is constant work. It takes for you to understand every goddamn piece of chemistry that you're dealing with. Biohacking is not a linear process. Please remember that. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. Remember, livecortex.com. Cortex auto ship. Go do it. If you're somebody who constantly gets Cortex, just do auto ship. Or if you're somebody who wants epic nootropics delivered to your doorstep every month, do Cortex auto ship. If you're new to Nootropics Ground Zero is where you have to start. It's just a video course that I created, literally tailored for new people to start using nootropics. Smarter, Better, Faster Audio is also something you should pair with Ground Zero if you're new to nootropics. Surgical guide on using nootropics the right way. We got all kinds of products. Nootropic Stacks for the business professional. That's for business people that just want stacks aimed at the kind of brain function you need in business. And if you're a real serious person and want to do one-on-one biohacking with me to optimize energy, hormonal profile, brain performance, using basically every chemical that I have at my fingertips and that we have, either 3.5-month intensive or the 6-month intensive. Go pull the trigger on those guys if you're thinking about doing it. Just go do it. I don't know what folks are waiting for. Some of you folks that have emailed and said, hey, I'm thinking about doing it. Just do it. The results we get are phenomenal. If you want to function awesomely, get one of those consults. VTP upgraded, livecortex.com, and then PSSD basic, livecortex.com. Thanks for watching, everybody. Talk to you next time.